she amazing?
Yes.
Yay! Isn't being right here, right now, with each other pretty amazing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. How many of you were excited just to draw in breath and get up another day? Absolutely. That is the power of zeal. It is that excitement, that enthusiasm. It is that part of us that says, get up, live life, go forth. Now, if you didn't hit the snooze button and you managed to get dressed and get in your car and actually show up, that was also a power. It was the power of power. It was dominion. It was you taking control of your thoughts and going, I'm not going to hit that snooze button, even though it sure would be nice. Right? So welcome to another hour of power. Today we're going to recognize, activate, and develop the powers of zeal and dominion. So we've been talking this summer about these spiritual capacities. Linda Martello-Whitsitt tells us that we come fully loaded with everything we need to live this life. But we forget. We ignore it. We pretend it doesn't exist, or we just lose it along the way. But it's still always there. And so this summer, we are dedicating our time to living audaciously in our divinity. And one of the ways that we do that is through the power of zeal. So Cindy and I were having a conversation about kids. If you have forgotten what zeal looks like, spend some time with kids. I'm telling you, they don't waste 1 minute of daylight. Not one. She was talking about her grandson waking up at 5:30, cooing and laughing and having a great time in his crib at 5:30 in the morning. My grandson is so excited about life that oftentimes he doesn't wait till daylight. So his mother has taught him to patiently wait on the couch in the living room. He can do whatever he wants to, but he has to stay on the couch. And then at just the right appropriate moment, he will come bounding up the stairs, jump on the bed and say, Grammy, the sun is awake. Aren't you? Because he's ready. Can you imagine if we could live our life every morning by planting 2 feet on the floor and going, oh, I'm alive, right? And don't we know people that have that kind of zest for life? Enthusiasm is only one of the characteristics of zeal. Another one is an indomitable power of optimism. So for those of you who follow me on Facebook, you know that I recently celebrated a birthday. And so while I was home visiting family, I decided to treat myself and to buy a kayak. Now, you have to understand, I had no thought process about how I was going to get the kayak home. I also had no doubt that it was possible for me to load this kayak on my car and to get it safely back to Fort Wayne. And it never occurred to me to ask the question, how? Because I was so excited about having my own kayak, and so I took it down on the river. And it never occurred to me that I couldn't take it off the top of my car, or that I wouldn't be able to load it back on the car. And believe it or not, I did both of those. Yay! I found out yesterday when I took Jane, when Jane went kayaking with me, that it's really much easier to do that with 2 people than it is 1. But it was that optimism, right? It's that thought. It never occurred to me that I couldn't do it. When I got called to ministry the second time, I didn't go up to the minister and say, I've been called to ministry, but I'm not really sure I'm cut out for this. I don't really think I can do this. Like, it never occurred to me that I might fail. That's optimism. When we do what we love, when we do what we're excited about, it never occurs to us that really anything could go wrong. Like Andrea said this morning with her and I. Can't possibly go wrong. The 2 of us are together. It's It's going to be a great service. So that enthusiasm, that optimism is kind of the oomph that gets us going. But then the second thing that we thrive on in Zeal is this thought of audacious living. This has become one of my favorite words. I love the way, divine audacity. I love the way that it sounds. So Reverend Glenda Martello-Whitsitt, in her book, Divine Audacity, writes that divine audacity is bold spiritual living, living under the radical premise that I am divine. So living boldly. And it's funny that Andrea is on the platform because she told me a story back in the fall that just tickled me. But it also really made me think about this living boldly and living as who we are. She said that there was a retired military person who had some extra time on their hands, and so they applied for a job at Walmart. And so they got a job at Walmart as a door greeter. They were a great door greeter. They were very friendly, they were a team player, and they just exuded this kind of respect for other people. The problem was that they were always late. Like they just couldn't seem to show up on time. So it came time for the airman's 6-month evaluation, and the manager sits down, and the manager is really puzzled. So I know that you're in the military, you're doing all the right things, and we're just so glad to have somebody that served our country, but I'm really puzzled. You just can't seem to get to work on time. So I'm wondering, when you were active duty, what happened when you would show up late for your assignment? He thought for a second, and he looked at the man, and he said, well, usually it was, good morning, Colonel, can I get you a cup of coffee? Living boldly. It doesn't require that we not be afraid, that we not be anxious. Anytime we step outside of our comfort zone, there's a little bit of anxiety. But living boldly is about doing it anyway. Doing it anyway. Even if we are not sure how it's going to turn out. To just be bold and to do it anyway. What are the things in your life that you would be doing right now if you weren't afraid? If you could just do it anyway, even though you're afraid. The last part of living in zeal is called devotion. So I had to think about devotion because we think about being devoted to our children, we think about being devoted to our relationships, but what does it mean to be devoted to what we really love, to our purpose, to who we are? And Glenda Martello describes it as single-minded heartedness. So it's this focusing on what's in your heart. It's living wholeheartedly. So if anyone's been around me any length of time, you know that I really don't halfway do anything unless you're asking me to do something I don't like, right? I am an all-in kind of girl. So I don't usually ask a lot of questions. I'm just all in, just like the kayak. I buy the kayak, I put it in the water. It doesn't occur to me that I'm going to have to row upstream. You know, I just do it. I'm a wholehearted kind of person. So what that means is that you live from your heart. That you focus your attention, your concentration, your time, your energy on what is in your heart. On what makes your heart sing. What would you be doing right now if your heart was singing? What would you be doing? So we have all of this energy, right? We're optimistic. We're enthusiastic. We've got a single-minded focus. But now what are we going to do with it all? Zeal does not serve us unless we decide to take action. And action is all about the power of dominion. So the power of dominion is about stepping into our place of power, knowing who we are. You see, we were made for power. We were born to be powerful. We were not born to be powerless. We were born to be powerful beings on this earth. When we read Genesis 4:24, in the creation story, we read, "Then God said, 'Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth.'" We were born to succeed. We were born to move forward. We were born to always create. And it is that power within us that allows us to create everything that we see. Everything that's happening right now is part of our collective consciousness, part of our collective power coming together to create. One of the aspects of using this power is concentration. Now, I couldn't help but be struck by the fact that we've talked about 2, 4, 5 powers so far, and in all 5 powers, there is this element of concentration. So when we talked about faith, it was about expectancy. Expect the best. Focus on what you want. When we talked about understanding, in understanding, one of the aspects is realization. It's focusing, realizing what's inside of us, focusing our thoughts. We just talked about imagination last week, and part of imagination is visioning, holding in our mind what it is that we are wanting to create. And now we've just talked about zeal and devotion and single-minded focus of the heart. And now power reminds us that once again we have to concentrate. I find that curious as a person that doesn't like to focus. I have about 1 million thoughts a day. Anybody else? Like constantly, right? I love what Linda Martella talks about when she describes the power of concentration. And it made perfect sense to me then why it's in every single power. Concentration intensifies our thoughts the way a laser intensifies the light. So think about that. There's all this light, and in a laser, we bring it down to this single point of focus. And a laser has the ability to cut through steel, to cut through flesh, and to heal. A lot of healing takes place because of laser. I bet the same is true of our thoughts. That our thoughts are also just as powerful as that laser of light. And so doesn't it make sense that to harness our creative power, we have to be able to concentrate it first. We have to be able to focus our thoughts. That in focusing and concentrating, we harness the creative energy that is within us. And so we lassoed what we want to create, but then what? Then we have to tell it where to go, figuratively. And that means directing it. And directing it is about self-mastery. Self-mastery, according to Linda Martella Whitsitt, is our capacity to guide our thoughts, words, and actions in integrity with our infinite self, instead of reacting from only human impulses. So mastery is about being able to select out of those 1 million ideas the one that is in alignment with who I am. So instead of choosing the I can't, I'm afraid, I won't, choosing the I can, I will, I ams, right? And bringing those into manifestation. To choose through self-mastery, to guide that energy into a single point of creation. The last aspect of power is spiritual authority. Now, we don't often think of ourselves as having authority, and many of us that grew up in religious traditions believed that authority was out there somewhere, that there was something out there that was doing the authoritating, and we were just part of the minions. But in unity, we know that the greatest power lies within us. And so spiritual authority, every time we circle up and we sing, "Let there be peace," we are exerting spiritual authority. In the creation story, over and over again, we read, "Let there be." And there was. Let there be is not a question. It's not a request. It's not a desire. It's a command. Another way that we use spiritual authority, and we don't even realize it, is every time we put two words in front of a statement, in front of a judgment usually, guess what those two words are? I am. Almost every spiritual tradition in the world says that the highest vibration, the most powerful words are I am. So when you say, "I am tired," guess what you're commanding? That you be tired. I am old. Well, you're just commanding, I'm old. You're just bringing that into being. I am. When Moses was getting ready to free the people of Egypt, he said to God, "Who shall I say sent me?" And God answered, "I am that I am." So every time we assert our spiritual authority, I am, we create. So you might want to think about what you're putting in front of the I am, what's coming after those I ams in your life. Charles Fillmore wrote, "The power of the world is within." If we want to change our lives, if we want to change the world that we are living in, we have to assert our spiritual power. And hopefully with a great deal of enthusiasm. When we started this series, we talked about how we are being called in this time to live boldly, to be courageously responsive versus unconsciously reactive. We spend a lot of time reacting. And this is an opportunity to be courageously responsive. We have within us the power to live the highest spiritual principle in every moment, in every challenge, in every conflict, in every relationship. We have the power to show up as faith, as understanding, as imagination, as will, as zeal, and as power. We have the power to live a life that's enthusiastic, to live a life that's optimistic, because we are the only ones who have dominion over our thinking. We have the power, and nothing is impossible to us. Namaste.